Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Coming up this week, we're going to tell you all about the grand opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge out in Disneyland. From the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida, and points around Southern California, this is the Disneyland edition of the Diz Unplugged. This is the Disneyland edition of the Diz Unplugged, episode 771 for the week of June 4th, 2019. The Diz Unplugged is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect Disneyland vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. And by Disboards.com. Join the more than 1 million fans who plan their Disney vacations on Disboards.com. You'll find information and strategies on every aspect of your Disney vacation. Just head over to disboards.com and join in the conversation. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friend, Steve Porter.
Hello.
Corey Fiasconaro.
Hey, guys.
Rhino Clavin.
Hello.
And back in the production nook, our producer, Mr. Craig Williams.
Oh, hoy, hoy.
Hope you guys are having Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And Mr. Tom Bell out in California. How are you, Tom?
Bright suns.
Build the spire.
I apologize for that. I'm a little off. I haven't sat in the chair in a couple weeks, so I'm a little off. But hope your week is off to a good start. Got a lot to talk about, but we have a couple things in housekeeping. First, just want to give a plug to our sponsor, the Magic Candle Company. If you go to magiccandlecompany.com, use code DisneyInfo, you save 15% on your order. And this month, you chose our featured scent.
Yeah, Senate confectionery. I think it's a really sweet smell. It's not one of their most powerful ones. So I wanted to give a range of, some people really like the more like undertoned, doesn't really, if you get headaches easily, you might like this smell because it's not overpowering.
Yeah, I don't think I've tried it yet. It's not one of the ones I've tried yet.
Yeah, either have I. I think it's one of their like original candles, but I haven't tried it either.
But if you're not familiar with Magic Candle Company, their candles are all resort and theme park inspired. As you'll be able to tell when you go to their website and take a look, there's they're definitely inspired by things that we know well. And while the candles are awesome and you really should check them out, I've got to say the room fresheners they've now become a requirement for me when I travel. So I was just up in New Jersey visiting family. And it wasn't that there were like any bad smells in the hotel room or anything like that. The hotel was actually very nice. But I had, I like to put up one of the air fresheners in the bathroom, and I put one up in the room. And this was a fairly large room. I want to say this room was about 550, 600 square feet. Every single time I walked into that room, I could smell that air freshener.
If only you guys traveled with one, our car would have smelled a little bit better on this trip.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, were you bad?
Oh, it was so bad. It was like...
The car smelled a little bit like cigarettes when we got in, but then like we opened the trunk and it was wet, and I was like, I've had Toyota Camrys before, and I've had this issue that sometimes when the trunk gets wet, it's impossible to get dry, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is mold in this car. So it just seemed to be getting progressively worse as it goes on, and I said, where are the Magic Candle Company smells that you guys always have? None of these fools had it with them.
See, now I'm traveling with them. I am traveling with them all the time. They are in my carry-on bags at all times. And I've started using them like in the bathrooms here in my house. So I have like the Polynesian in my master bath. Every time I walk in there, it's like, wow. And, for what? How much are they? Like $5? I mean...
You get 4 for like 20, is it?
Yeah, let me see.
So yes, which would be $5.
$5
And they're They really do work great. So, not just the candles, but those air fresheners are awesome. And new fragrance released this.
New fragrance just came out, Citrus Swirl. It's captures the delicious aroma of that icy swirl of frozen orange and soft serve ice cream. So it's a perfect combination of juicy, crisp orange notes with sweet vanilla. So.
And Steve just it was off the top of his head. He wasn't reading, because that's how he talks. I haven't checked that one out either. I'm going to have to. We're actually going to be doing in the next week or so. We're going to be doing reviews of these. We let him know that because there's some of them I don't like. It's not that they're bad. I just don't care for them, and I feel like I want to be honest about that. There are some that I absolutely love. What I'm burning in here right now, Vero Beach, is phenomenal.
I love that one.
Phenomenal. Contemporary, of course, I think is my all-time favorite. Polynesian, African Lodge, Mouse Waffles, France.
Save it for the review.
Are all among my favorite. Well, they already know what my favorites are. I've not talked about what my least favorite ones are. So we'll leave that for the review.
Sweaty Tourist. It's one of his least favorites.
Yeah. All right. So that, and also, Rhino, you want to talk a little bit about Patreon?
So Patreon, our crowdfunding website out there. You can check that out, patreon.com/disunplugged. We have a lot of behind-the-scenes sort of things that we do. There's different tiers involved. For example, if you're in the $10 tier, that kind of gives you access to any sort of behind-the-scenes videos that we do. Or exclusive vlogs that we make for Patreon specifically. $25 and up, you get early access to really anything that we can give you early access to. And that, comes and goes. Sometimes we've got a lot of videos staged, and you'll just get to check those all out before people do, before anybody else does. And then, you can just donate $1 a month if you want. But essentially, this money goes to the daily, day-to-day runnings of the podcast. We've grown significantly in the last 4 years that I've worked here.
Has it really been 4 years that you've been here?
I started in January of 2015 was when I started freelancing. So this is technically my fifth year. 2015, yeah. This is my fifth year, going on my fifth year, yeah. So it's crazy. So, there are things the quality increases, like the videos that we make, but sometimes not all the equipment functions perfectly all the time. Like my camera is, he needs
a new one.
It is, I love the camera. I love my camera. I love the work. I don't know what is going on with it. There's something wrong with the hard drive in it, but for when things like this happen, we can fall back on this sort of stuff, and it's not such a blow to the entire
operation.
Conveyor. Yeah, there we go. I was going to say conveyor belt of things, but I'm struggling with vocabulary. Yeah, it's new to me.
These guys are, I think I pretty much killed these guys this past week out in California. Well, thank you for that, Rhino.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And this is an exhausted team, except for me, because I wasn't out there with them. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Galaxy's Edge. For starters, I was not out there. I had some responsibilities here that I needed to take care of, and work responsibilities, and I had to make the very difficult choice to not go, and instead stay here and kind of experience the opening of Galaxy's Edge the way many of you did, through the absolutely amazing videos that these guys produced. I not only were the videos great, but people don't understand with an event like that how difficult it is to shoot those videos, edit those videos, and upload those videos all in the span of a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even. Some of that stuff was going up within hours of it being shot.
Well, it probably would have been even quicker.
And you're not doing it. And you're not doing it from home. You're doing it from a hotel room.
Yeah. So you have the Wi-Fi that you have to rely on, which can sometimes go in and out. But we did run into fun little things, like my hard drive crashed the first day at about 2:30 in the morning, and so I had to re-edit all the videos that I had already edited. As I was like, "Oh, I'll go to bed now," and the world was like, "No, you idiot!" And then YouTube crashed too. It would let people watch videos. So if you were just using YouTube, you didn't notice it. But we were like, both of us, Craig and I, were uploading a video at the same time, and he was like, "Oh, something just happened to the thing," and I'm like, "Oh, it just said I logged out of a window." And I Googled, you can see where all the down. It was like all of New England had this issue, and there was this little yellow spot in California, and you
Right
zoom
over
all
you.
the way into the thing, and it was just
It's probably
in
because
Anaheim.
everybody else in the Disney blogosphere was doing the exact same thing
Yeah.
you were. Everybody killed YouTube.
Yeah.
You know. So the guys went out there, and there's really kind of two parts to this. There's the media event, which Craig attended as the representative of the Diz, and then there was the grand opening itself, which everyone needed to have reservations because these guys all had rooms on property. They had reservations, and so I just kind of want to, I'm going to try and capture about 9 hours worth of information into the span of an hour here. Talk to me about the grand opening experience. What was that like?
Well, I want to say the reservation system first. So we'll talk about that because that seemed, people can be nervous when it's so many people trying to go to a place at once. I thought it worked really well. We did encounter an issue on our first day when we were checking in. It had we had made several reservations for the hotel, and when we went in to scan, we scanned one, and it said the correct names. It said Craig Williams and whoever else was on his, and then we scanned the second one, which was your name and my name, and it said Craig Williams and whoever else's name, and they were like, I'm like, oh no, and they're like, oh, I need the other email, and you could clearly see the name was written, but they had a center set up that they walked us over to, that they helped us after they gave us a lot of questions.
I just feel like Tom Bell's getting the short shaft today. I mean, first he gets ignored during the intro, and now you're like Craig Williams and whatever his name is.
I couldn't remember who the other person was that was on your reservation. Sorry.
Yeah. That was the only issue we encountered. We then were moved into the Starcade, where we went through a very
rigorous
questioning and strenuous process. But eventually, they were able to look
What
up
do you
the
mean?
reservation.
I mean,
They didn't believe that we were not didn't believe, but they
didn't you just pull out your room keys?
No, when you checked in at the hotel, and I asked about this specifically, our room keys all just had one name on it. So like Craig and I were in the same room, and they would only put Craig's name on the key.
Why?
And she was like, "You can keep this and scrapbook this." And I said, "Well, can I get one with my name on it?" And they said, "We only put the primary person who made the reservation's name on the key."
That has never been the case.
And that's true because the people didn't believe us in the Starcade. They were like, "I just
that has
stayed there with
never
my kids."
been the case. I've always had whoever's listed on the room gets a key in their name.
It happened to all three rooms that we had. So we did have the issues, but they really wanted to double check, and so eventually they went in and found your reservation for the hotel and confirmed that you did have one. So everything ended up being resolved with that. But they even
But
tried.
my reservation was canceled.
No, because when I booked the room for you originally, you were the primary guest. So I could add on Rhino, but I could not take your name off primary guest. So then they even for a second, they were like, well, Rhino can't check in for this without you. And I said, well, no, he's a hotel guest. Just because the primary guest decided not to show up for a hotel reservation, that didn't mean the hotel reservation wasn't being used.
Yeah.
And
that's how it goes for a regular reservation. If you weren't a hotel guest and you made a reservation on the website, the primary person who made the reservation has to be here or it's not valid. So they were trying to tell us that's what had happened, that the hotel was the same rule. And we're like, but I'm in the hotel. I paid for the hotel. We're staying here.
Yeah. So it did get resolved. The nice part, too, was I don't know about Paradise Pier because I didn't walk into that. But in Disneyland Hotel, they did have a reservation center opened up on the bottom floor. So if you didn't receive your email, had any issues with it, you could walk in there and take care of it.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I can't confirm there was one.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, then, scale of 1 to 10, how did they handle the reservations for hotel guests?
I mean, 10, wonderfully.
Yeah.
It was all very, very smooth. They were, like I said, with the one issue, that was just a fluke. But otherwise, it was handled well. Both that and the reservations that you could book on your own if you didn't have a hotel reservation.
So they were organized, they were ready, they were prepared.
Check-in process could not have been easier.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
it was moving along too. A really long line that just kept going.
Yeah, when you first approached, even like when you get your wristband, it looks like a super long line, but you get through that line super quick.
And I went to the Star Wars Registration Center over at Paradise Pier, and you were the primary guest in our room, so I didn't have my own personal QR code yet, and I just walked over there, showed you the room key with your name on it, because my room key also had Steve's name on it, because he was the primary guest, and showed him my ID, because I was the secondary guest on that room, and they just sent me a fresh QR code to my email. So it was very, very smooth.
All right, so let's go on to then the grand opening.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite a spectacle. So why don't you talk to me about that? Tell people who was there, what the deal was.
Well, he went.
Yeah,
Craig
I
went to
was
that.
the only one in the attendance for that. So that happened during the party that was on the 29th, I think now. Yeah, the 29th. So essentially, to take just a step back, I did get to go in on the 29th in the afternoon, and so that was my first glance at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and I'm always happy anytime we're invited to be a part of any media event. It's always a complete honor, and I take it seriously like that. I was actually slightly disappointed because they have what a lot of people, you can see from the tour video I did around the land, but like there's interview spots set up all over the place. There was the stage for the grand opening moment, risers, like everything was like so flooded that the first time I was seeing the land, it was not set up like you would see it as a guest. So I was actually, as much as I could take in all the detail and such, I was slightly underwhelmed. Like Rhino can probably say that. When I got back to the room, I was like kind of bummed out.
You were texting me while you were there, and we can't keep our family friendly rating.
Yeah.
And repeat the things you were saying.
Yeah,
text
it was
me.
it was kind of disappointing in a way. But again, I was so happy to be in there, but it was like it really did kind of, it took a couple days then. I mean, it took until we went in for our normal time slot to actually like be like, holy crap, this is on this level. But for the grand opening party, it was a huge celebration. I mean, this was Disney top level executives, every famous people. Like I tweeted about it. I just kept passing Brie Larson, who we know as Captain Marvel. She's just there drinking beer, hanging out with her friends, having fun all the time. Fred Savage was there.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I was walking out of Ronto Roasters, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is standing there shaking hands with Bob Iger.
Wow.
What in the world is happening?
That's surreal.
Yeah, no, it was just flat out insane. Like when I was waiting to get to the spot to watch the grand opening, Tony Baxter was standing right beside me. He was just in like the media pool, just like hanging out.
I made my stop for my mint julep, and they were like, somebody leaned in, they're like, Tony Baxter is sitting right behind you, and I'm turning around, I'm like, so he is.
I'm gonna tell you, you want to talk about again, and this is true with the Imagineers. No ego. One of the nicest men you will ever meet, Tony Baxter. I remember seeing him. It was my last. It was the last day of one of my trips out there, and I was eating at Naples out in the patio, and I saw him having lunch, and I waited till he finished and got up, and I went over, and this was just the nicest man. I have a picture somewhere. It's a fat picture. We look like the number 10, but just the nicest guy. He just got that. He just got that. So yeah, who else? Who else you see?
It's on a smaller scale, but one of my favorite comedians, Taran Killam, was there with his wife, Kobe Smuggers, who
the star of Single Parents. I feel like he's not small.
A lot of people wouldn't know him by name. But
I don't know who he is.
Yeah,
He was on SNL.
Yeah, he was on SNL for a while. His wife was Robin on How I Met Your Mother, and then plays.
She's in all the Avengers movies.
Yeah. But a lot of celebrities there. We knew that people started spotting Mark Hamill and George Lucas around.
Okay, now that's when I would have just turned into an idiot.
I didn't see them in the crowd at any point in time, but of course then we did have the grand opening moment where Bob Iger came out and talked about the land and the process that it was going through to bring it to life, and of course that all started way back when with Disney, even before that with Star Tours and the partnership with George Lucas. So George Lucas came out and he gave a very George Lucas speech.
What did he say?
I hate this.
Hey, here's it's it's
cool.
great accomplishment and good great. Big,
Well, look, it's no secret that he's not thrilled with what Disney is doing with Star Wars.
I think he's jealous, is what it is. I think that he is. I think that he thought he had reached the full potential of what it could be, and I feel like somebody just mined it, and it has made like as much money as it's made over that period of time with a shorter period of time. So I think he's just kind of fuming about that. Yeah, that's the impression I'm getting lately.
I don't know. He can dry those tears with the
$100 billions of dollars. Yeah,
it was awesome though. I think that was the first time I had ever seen him in person. I missed out on the last chance that I had, so that was my first time seeing him. Then they brought out Dee Williams who played Lando Calrissian, the original one, and because obviously the big attraction opening was Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. So he came out and gave a nice short little speech, which was adorable. And then Mark Hamill took the stage, and because he's Luke Skywalker, he's the most important person, arguably in the entire franchise. So then he came out and said a few words, and then the big surprise, which I didn't expect him to actually be there. But Harrison Ford did make an appearance.
I would have lost my mind.
I have seen him before, never that close, because I was about 20, 30 feet from the stage. So that was the closest I had ever seen him. And the best part about his interaction was before they set off the firework finale with it, he did he hit the Falcon to get it started up and said, "Peter, this one's for you," because, of course, Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, died earlier this year. Yeah, and Peter Warner.
He meant me.
Yeah, back at home. But it was insane. I mean, it was one of it. Actually, it was probably the biggest thing I've been to in terms of that level. Pandora was pretty massive, but this was a whole other thing. And then stuff started getting cleared out to make way for opening day on May 31st, and that's when the real fun began.
All right, so let's talk about that, but I'm going to go to Tom, because poor Tom's been sitting there in obscurity. So Tom, talk to me about that opening day now. You're and especially for you, I mean, you've grown up with Disneyland. This is your park. There were there's been lots of opinions back and forth as to whether or not this was a good idea in the first place, and a lot of hype and a lot of speculation. So from your perspective, going in the first time, what was your experience?
I when I've shared this before, that I was of the opinion that it didn't belong in this park. But as immersive as this thing is, it had to go in Disneyland. There's nothing in California Adventure this immersive. It had to go in Disneyland. You go in this land and you don't see the outside world. It's crazy. And I would talk a little bit later about how it's affecting the rest of the park. Everybody is, with the reservation system, only the people that have reservations are in the parks. The rest of the park is empty. We were 10-minute wait for Incredicoaster, 5-minute wait for Pirates. It was just incredible how this thing.
But correct me if I'm wrong. The park wasn't blocked off to people.
It was on the Saturday. It was.
Saturday
people were staying away.
People just stayed. I'm saying they weren't regular day guests were allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were just staying away.
There were certain passes that were blocked off, though. I was talking to a few cast members and stuff.
But even the tourists were staying away because it was just. I mean, the other than the highest level of annual pass, the annual passes are blocked right now. But even tourists and stuff, it was a beautiful thing. The parks were beautiful this weekend.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you did meet people every now and then who would come up to you because they saw you had something with Galaxy's Edge, whether it was your wristband, merchandise, whatever, and they said like, "Oh, we're not going in," but That was few and far between. I mean, it did seem like if you were at the parks, you were there for Galaxy's Edge, and I'm sure some people then showed up saying, "Oh God, these wait times are amazing. I'm just gonna have fun, go on as many rides as I can, and not care about Star Wars." But it was eerie.
Interesting.
I just want to say too that on the 30th, I met the young Han Solo.
I saw that picture.
We talk about who we met, but what I was surprised about is I met him around 2:00, and I was like, "Oh, did you see the land yet?" And he said, "No, I'm going there now." And I was like, "You didn't?" I didn't ask him, but all I could think was, "Wow, they really must have hated your movie not to invite you to the media party."
Yeah, really.
Han Solo doesn't get to ride his own ride.
Didn't get to be at the opening of his own attraction, but I'm like, it's cool. But no, I agree. Yeah, we like Matterhorn was like a walk-on, and I have never seen that.
All right,
ever.
well, talk to me about the land itself, though. Like your first experience going in. Like,
So-
what did you think?
Okay, well you kind of queue up. They don't want to call it a line, but you essentially are in a line where you go in by the Hungry Bear, and then you walk up. It's kind of like shoulder to shoulder, and then they bring you to the edge of the Resistance Forest, and you wait there. We probably waited for 45 minutes, maybe.
It kind of varied. The first time we only waited there for about 20 minutes. The next time it was like 30, and then the next time after that it was like 40.
Yeah,
so it kept changing.
They keep moving people. The first time they would keep moving us forward. So the line, like, you could choose to queue up or you didn't. I mean, you had to, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But it kept moving to the point where it didn't really feel like, oh God, I'm here forever. I think they did a good job with that.
And the first thing that you do, though, is you go to Star Wars Launch Bay. So that's where you're going to get your wristband. You can check in up to 2 hours before your reservation time, and they give you your wristband so then you can go meet at Hungry Bear or at Big Thunder if you're a morning reservation. And then also there at Launch Bay is where you can queue up to do all your merch purchasing. So you can do that whether or not you have a reservation, no matter what time your reservation is at. Any time during the day you can show up at Launch Bay and queue up to go through the merchandise area. That merchandise area is going to have a huge selection of the merchandise, the pins, the shirts, the plushes, what
From
have you.
inside Galaxy's Edge.
Yep.
No.
No, it's not that same
No,
merchandise.
it's some some of the stuff like those pins aren't sold inside of Galaxy's Edge,
And, like,
their
there's a
shirts
shirt-
were not
Oh, yeah.
in Galaxy's
Yeah.
Edge.
So there was stuff in Launch Bay that was not in Galaxy's Edge,
Right.
but it was Galaxy's Edge
Yeah,
specific?
Like if you wanted opening day stuff, that was not in Galaxy's Edge because remember, Galaxy's Edge is not self-referential, so nothing that says Star Wars on it will be there. Nothing that says Galaxy's Edge will be there. If it just says Black Spire Outpost or Batuu or whatever, it'll be there. But
Because they don't know that they're in Star Wars.
Yeah,
Right.
you've traveled to another planet.
So if you were to buy like clothing in Galaxy's Edge, it would all be like the themed clothing, and then so like the graphic tees were all at Launch Bay.
Tom?
Thomas
What's that?
holding up his shirt.
Oh, I thought you were trying to get my
was
attention.
holding-
No,
Black
he's wearing
Spire
his
Outpost shirt.
Yeah,
Oh.
the Black Spire Outpost.
Okay.
But
So
then also one other thing I'd like to mention is that line was kind of long. It took us about 40 minutes to go through the entire queue. But then at Star Traders, it was a much shorter line, and they also had a pretty wide selection.
okay, I just want to kind of rein everybody in because nobody's answered my question.
I'll tell you.
I would
Nobody's
love
answered
to
my
tell
question.
you.
When you first, what did it feel like for you when you first walked in?
So they set up. Steve was on the track
was
there
going there.
because it is this.
Yeah, well, we have an hour show here. I
Yeah.
need to move this along.
It's a manic process right now with how they're setting it because it's really building up the anticipation. Because if you're there waiting to get in, you might be like you're building on an hour of anticipation as you slowly move up. And the first thing you get into is the Resistance Forest, which, of course, Rise of the Resistance won't be open until later this year. But you start hearing the sights and sounds and realize that, with the exception of a couple train whistles and stuff, you can't hear the outside of the park.
Yeah, the music
But-
starts to fade away as you walk up.
Yeah, and you can see the X-Wing and the A-Wing that they have in there just off to your right, and it really is building. And, like, we were lucky, I think one of the times that, Chewbacca came walking
Yeah.
past, so it really started setting the stage, like, okay, you're here. But then, because you're on the Resistance Forest, you're on the far, far left side of Galaxy's Edge, and the outpost, the marketplace, all of this is all the way on the right side. So then once they let you go and you're able to walk in, it just like slowly you go into this forest and you're moving through there, and it's not anything like the sights and sounds get you, but it's not like anything overwhelming. And then you come up and you see the marketplace, and just taking it from the concept art to in person, like it looks nearly identical. And it doesn't. And then once you get to the actual outpost where you're standing there seeing that entire area with the Millennium Falcon and Smuggler's Run and the big ship on top of Docking Bay 7, and there's a TIE, I believe you pronounce it Echelon. It's Kylo Ren ship that's parked further down the way. Like, you start seeing it and you realize, like, the scale of this place is just... It's unlike anything Disney has done.
Where, like, I've been to Disney parks before where you're like, okay, you can get this is our job. We can get a lay of the land pretty quickly. I repeatedly kept making turns where I thought the land ended, and they'd be like, oh no, like, this area is like, you can't come in right now. And I'm like, oh, I was like, can I not get... I'm thinking like I'm trying to cut over to where Smuggler's Running, and I have not even walked halfway down to where the end of this land is. And there's just this beauty, like, it is so big, but it's like the walk that they've done up to it. Like, if you're gonna go when it's free reign or whatever, I don't know how they're gonna do it later in the future. I actually think they did bring us in through the perfect entrance through that Hungry Bear area, because you do go through the forest and you feel like you've left Disneyland and you are somewhere else. And this area, I was saying to Craig that I think the next step after this is going to be people are going to create a fully functional community, because when I was in there, I was looking through, and my line of sight where like a cast member came through the droid depot, and I was like, I literally feel like I'm in this actual, like, this in the Black Spire Outpost. Like, I'm in a fully functional community right now that people live in, that I'm in this whole another place that's not Disneyland, that I have traveled somewhere else. And just the architecture, and what I really, really like is immediately you can tell it's not all built on one level. Like, a lot of the rest of Disneyland is just this one level. It, like, you go up, there's stairs that go down, there's like a hill over here, and so it's all...
Is it handicap accessible?
Oh, yes. yeah, 100%. Because, like, if you were to go all the way down the land, it's literally like a hill this way. But if you go through the marketplace, there's some stairs on the side, but there's also ramps.
So, only thing I would say in terms of handicap accessibility, since it was brought up, is that they did take some notes, obviously, from the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in terms of making things feel more authentic. It is built to a size that you would expect for these small shops to be, and so in some of the ones in the marketplace, it was very tight. You would struggle, like, to pull a wheelchair or ECV in there. You really had to be on your feet moving around in there.
Okay, so just let me ask a question here. I get that it's immersive. Did it... Because what is it, 20 acres?
14
acres. Which, in theme park worlds, that's kind of small. Did it feel small?
No. I thought from all the videos, so
right, because when I look at things on, like, the maps and the videos and the concept art, I'm thinking all those people crammed into this little space.
Well, Disney had released their, like, media footage where they sent the drone through the area, and I was editing that while Craig was at the event, and I was thinking to myself, like, this looks beautiful, but this seems a lot smaller than I kind of expected. There's no real way, I think, to, like, fully kind of capture the enormity that it actually feels like when I'm there. It like, you can keep looking at the pictures, and Disney did a good job about the amount of people that they let in. I would hope that they don't increase that size anymore, because it will impact your experience in the amount of time that you have there. But I think it will handle crowds well.
Pandora is kind of like the mini-me in this scenario, I would say. It's just it's that same feel, that same aesthetic, that same look, just on a smaller scale.
See, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think Pandora is beautiful. I don't ever feel that, like, I've left Animal Kingdom.
Right.
I don't. Yeah. So I'm not disbelieving you. I'm just.
It was like when we went in the second time. I literally felt like this is another theme park.
Is there any place else, at Disney or in any theme park, that gives you a similar feel?
Again, I wouldn't. I know Craig made a comparison to Pandora, and I understand that comparison, but I would put it more on a comparison to specifically the Diagon Alley area of Universal. But even then, the whole idea behind that is the Wizarding World exists like behind our real world, so that's the type of transportation you're supposed to feel. This was like it just happens so gradually that I did really feel like I was 100% separated from the rest of the park, and not in a bad way.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
When you step back into Disneyland, it feel like I just.
Is it jarring?
I mean, no, I don't.
No.
No, it's not jarring, but you do feel like you've gone someplace else.
Yeah.
For sure.
Wow.
I haven't been to Disney Sea, but I'm assuming that based on how many people like praise that highly, I'm assuming that some of the areas in that park might capture a similar.
Look, I think Disney Sea is the best Disney theme park I've ever stepped foot in Tokyo, hands down. And while I think they did an amazing job with the theming of the various areas, especially Agrabah really blew me away. At no point did I ever feel that I was actually somewhere else.
Okay. Then this would be very, very unique. I would say I do compare it very, very closely to Diagon Alley in terms of that escape. The only issue is Diagon Alley is like a thumb, and Galaxy's Edge is like a hand. It's size wise. It's just you can't compare it. That 14 acres is massive.
Just as an aside, I don't want this to be a discussion. Let's remember that the reason Galaxy's Edge exists at all is a response to the Wizarding World and Diagon Alley at Universal. That's why they had to do this.
Well, what's interesting is I felt like being in the land, all I can think about is like, yes, there was modification to the railroad that was shortened and the Rivers of America that was shortened, but I'm like, look what you got in return. And so anybody who has ever said this doesn't belong here, they are eating their words.
So
right
let's
now.
let's go to our Disneyland native. You agree with that, Tom?
Lost you for a second.
Oh no, Rhino was just saying that you had to shorten the railroad, you had to shorten the Rivers of America, change those things around in order to accommodate Galaxy's Edge, and a lot of the complaints going in was that Galaxy's Edge doesn't belong here in the first place. And Rhino was saying, look at what you got in exchange for that, though. Do you agree with that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, even if Galaxy's Edge doesn't exist, the beauty of that new trestle for the train, and yet that area, there was no downside to that change.
So you feel that because I know that you were one of the people who was like not really on board with this idea when they first announced it.
Yeah.
Were you wrong?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they could have done this in California Adventure. I don't think it.
Well, the option. Of course,
it would have worked in California.
There are those who will argue they shouldn't have done it at all. That it doesn't fit with Disneyland, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Third park or something. Yeah.
Do you feel that that's true?
Going back. It's done so well, it's hard to argue against it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
going back to the immersiveness. I think we need to mention the cast members or the residents of Batu, how they add to the story, how they are totally in character from the second you enter that land to the second you leave that land. There is no break in character. They use their phrases. They talk about that they don't mention money. It's credits. It's just so immersive. They'll answer any questions you have and tell their story and where they're from, and it's just crazy.
Well, one cast member experience I want to talk about that Fiasco had. He texted me about this. Tell him what happened.
Okay. So we were standing in line, or I was standing in line for the Droid Depot, and me and Steve were kind of like taking shifts, so he was off grabbing a Coke or something. and I was like on my phone, and a stormtrooper came up to me and they have like, well, not to ruin the immersion, but they have like commands that they say that their helmet spouts out. And he used the one that was like, you seem really interested in that data pad. I'm going to need to see that. And like, I asked Steve later, I was like, did you see what happened? Like, was I too much? But I kind of went forward, like, because he like walked forward to me, and I took a step forward to him. And I was like, no, I have direct order. And I was able to say, like, I have direct orders from Vader. I have direct orders for the First Order or something. And, like, I guess I spooked the stormtrooper. I don't know. But he did, like, the 3-finger knife hand to my chest and, like, pushed me backwards and then went off and started to talk to, like, a regular cast member that wasn't in uniform. And then the regular cast member came over to me and was like, you might want to be more careful next time. And then I look over at the stormtrooper, and the stormtrooper was going like this. And I was like,
here's the thing that a cast member, screw immersion here. A cast member put his hands on you. That ain't okay.
Right.
That's not okay. I know you. You're not a threatening guy. You're not somebody who walks around with a chip on his shoulder. So I can't imagine you did anything.
Here's the thing. I will say, not to go against you, but just a little bit in that cast member's defense. Jokingly, I think when you like responded, you did like a step towards him, like, no, like the Darth Vader gave me approval.
Oh, well, you got all street on him?
Well,
and I think he was like, I think he might have been like, whoa, back up.
Yeah, so like I was just
because I don't think maybe he didn't know you were joking. That might be the only.
Well, I think that ship sails when you say Lord Vader told me. At this point, yeah, at this point, we're kidding around, right?
I guess, but you got to think about it from somebody who's wearing a helmet's perspective. That somebody just lunged forward.
Yeah, you know what? Unless that person puts their hands on you. You don't touch a guest.
Yeah, but I think you can also do like I need my space type of thing.
Well, then you put your hand up. You don't actually physically make contact with someone and push them back. You don't do that. And that's the line you don't cross. You don't agree with that?
I mean, I would not like a push, but to be like, hey, give me my space.
But that's not what that is. When you take your when you push into somebody's chest, you're now making contact. There's now physical contact between a cast member and a guest. That isn't okay. Okay, you obviously think it is.
I mean, I would say if I needed my space, I mean, it's one thing to push a guy, but to like put 2 fingers on him and say, hey, back up a little bit. I don't know.
And
No.
I mean, so like I was like stressing over this for a while. Like, am I in the wrong? Like I kept asking Steve, like, what do you think of the situation? Because like I was like, did I do something? But like the more and more I reflect back on it, like I don't think I did. I really don't think I did. Like, so like the stormtrooper came up in the way that they do, and they were like, hey there, and then like it wasn't really like I didn't like lunge forward aggressively. Like I said no, and then I'm more like leaned forward into him, like I'm telling you a secret, like, hey, I'm here on official business. And that was what spooked him. Like, it's not like I was like that. I wasn't like doing anything like aggressive. Like It was more of like a, listen here, buddy,
But generally speaking, though, you found the cast members to be in character and
like to the point where I got confused. And this was what was great about it is that they'll for money they would say credits obviously, and then they'll ask do you have any credit reducers or any sort of I forget what they said for the word.
Discounts.
Yeah, galactic discounts, stuff like that. Except for this one older gentleman who I believe was training that day because he'd be like, annual pass, and the girl behind him was like, what's that? And he was like, oh. And like, so it was funny, but it got to the point, so I'm sure we'll talk about it in a few minutes here, the lightsaber experience. Like the whole idea behind that is that you're going to an area that is a scrap metal area, because they're
I don't want to get too far into merchandise and dining.
No, the thing is, you can't ask them questions on the outside about it too much because they can't answer them because they don't they don't know what they don't want to say they know what a lightsaber is, because the whole story of this land is that this is this kind of place where the Resistance is hiding, and the First Order is now there. Like, the flags of the First Order are everywhere, so you are a member of the Resistance, and so like they can't really give you the full details on a lot of stuff sometimes. But if you really kind of are like, I am really confused, they'll help.
How important is it for people to watch the new movies?
That was I think one of the biggest testaments, because I've been thinking about this whole time. I think you can go in and not like Star Wars at all, because this is the difference between this and Diagon Alley, which I think Diagon Alley is beautiful and is a Harry Potter's like person's like dream, but this is so removed from the movies that you can go in and really appreciate the story, the aesthetics, the innovation, the craftsmanship, the cast members, the theming, the story, all of it, and not have really ever seen Star Wars, I think. I mean, you won't really understand the Kylo Ren thing, but they do a little show every time he shows up, and it pretty much explains, like, this is the bad guy that is in this town with these kind of overbearing people, and they are looking for these like rebels, you know, this resistance force. And I just think anybody that is going to kind of like scoff or make fun of it or laugh, Kevin, is that like you can go in and you will be like, I was wrong. You know, I can see why people love this area, and you can go in and be a fan of this area and still hate Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, Craig, where are we time-wise?
We're about 40-ish minutes.
Okay. Because I'm in this quandary right now. We have, as you know, we pre-record this show on Tuesdays before we do our Tuesday show. I'm looking at the clock here. And I really want to have an at-length discussion about merchandise and dining, but I don't want to try and shoehorn that into 15 minutes. So I think we're going to reserve that conversation for next week.
Do you want us to give you like a general impression of it?
Give us a quick overview of what you thought of dining and that, but I want to go into much more depth on it next week, because I think in terms of looking at the videos you guys produced, we're in a whole nother league now when it comes to merchandise and the interactivity of merchandise, and even with the food. You know, we've talked about Satuli Canteen and Pandora and how good it is, and it looks like they have taken that and gone to another level with it. So I think that deserves an in-depth discussion.
Yeah.
But let's do a high-level overview here on let's start with merchandise. Of the merchandise locations that you experienced, what stands out to you, Rhino, as the most?
Well, I thought, I'll tell you two different thoughts I have on this. One, everyone knows how excited I was about the clothing, and that feels like they really pulled back on that. That there isn't really a ton of this, like, there are shirts and stuff that you can get, you know, that will have, like, FN, you know, whatever, stuff like that. Nothing that says Star Wars, but it could be, like, a shirt with a stormtrooper on it and have, like, Orbesh written on it, or, like, the one that Tom was showing earlier with the Black Spire Outpost written on it, and then on the bottom it has it written in the Star Wars language as well. There was not really, with the exception of like two different Resistant jackets, there wasn't a lot of stuff. You can't curate a whole outfit based on what you could find in this land.
Really?
Yeah, they did sell Jedi robes. There was an area, and if you are a girl, there was plenty of like Rey type clothing in there.
Which you are.
Well, I wanted to, but it's cut for a girl, so I can't. It won't fit on my shoulders. There's like her vest that she wears. I would have liked, but So there's like that stuff, but you can't wear the Jedi robes in the land. And I get it. I do kind of get it where it is against the story, because when we were wearing our lightsabers in the land, any cast member would say, like, or not cast member, whatever they are, the residents would say, like, oh, you better be careful before the First Order, you know, I won't tell anybody, you know, so it was all supposed to be like, it's all secretive, you know, and I get that. So they kind of tied that into the story so that basically they can't be like, this way people don't get confused whether you're an actual cast member or just a person who's a fan.
My only problem with that, though, is that there are people out there that might not be such big fans that they're going to wear it around their house, but they would have worn it there. You see what I'm saying? Like,
no, you don't know until you buy it either. So it's there's that, but then on the other side of that, the lightsaber experience. So I know we scoffed at the price a lot, like $200. This is insane. Well, we did a video of it, and I will tell you, and people have been like, "Oh, I thought you would be more emotional." I did get emotional. Like, I was like, okay, don't start crying while you're on camera when the lightsaber turns on and I lifted it up, you know. And I was emotional. You can't really see my face dead on for that, but I was like, I can't believe this whole experience just kind of, they did such a beautiful job with that I was like, I have to go back. I have to build my own. And
because the video you did, you were building mine.
Yes, yeah.
Which
that
is
was one for you.
amazing. I
Yeah.
got to tell you something. Like, when I held that in my hand, I was stunned that this came out of a Disney theme park.
Yeah.
It is heavy, and it is really well made, and I was blown away.
I brought mine here too. I know if anybody's watching, you can see it, but mine looks like completely different than Pete's. Craig made one in the same. Craig and I picked the same the type because there's 4 different types, and his looks completely different than mine too. It's got similarities, but it looks different. And what's amazing to me is that not only. The lightsaber's more intuitive than I thought it would be because there's crystals that can be swapped out, but we learn they make different noises in the lightsaber. It's this whole thing. I just thought that whole experience was amazing.
So keeping it on the high level with merch, I feel like, from my opinion, that obviously the most expensive merchandise opportunity is the lightsaber experience, besides the $25,000 R2-D2 replica. But the most expensive one is the lightsaber, and that's the best. I know a lot of people were liking the next most expensive one in a way, and that was the build your own droid experience. Everyone had a droid. You either had like a droid or a lightsaber, but on the most merchandise around the area, the only thing that really did catch my eye as unique was the stuff that felt authentic to the land, the Toydarian shop with kind of like the hand stitched plushes that look like some local person actually made them themselves, or the little wooden toys they had in there. So this is the stuff that felt mass produced to me, even though some of that stuff did too. That it didn't really connect with me on that level. But with being said, if with the merchandise, if lightsabers or the droids are your thing, I would try to be at the front of the lines to get into the land. Droid experience, I think, was hovering between like 20 minutes and an hour in line for that, so that takes up a big chunk of time. Lightsabers, if you're not in there in the land within 5 minutes, you're not building a lightsaber.
Really?
Yeah, they can only do, what did you say, 15 and then the show takes. It's 15 people per each show, and the show goes, depending on how long it takes people to build it, like 20 minutes. So
I would say roughly a half an hour, though. So
do
you think they're going to shorten that?
That's what I was worried about.
The problem is, it's really on how fast the people are building inside, and you can only rush them to so much of an extent.
And is there only one location where you can build them?
Yes. There's only one location and only one room you can do it in. So it feels like a second room would have been a little bit more helpful on that, but that is something you need to be aware of. Also,
well, especially considering they're getting $200 a clip, you think it might be worth it for them to...
$250,000 a day.
Yeah, that's
from
what
people building lightsabers. That's in 4 days. You'll have $1 million from people building lightsabers.
Yeah, and speaking of other experiences where you have to basically run to it right away and be there within the first, I would say maybe 15 minutes for this, but if you want to even get into Oga's Cantina, they did change how that's already working now. They've already changed it to a phone reservation system,
awesome.
Which the first 2 days...
What do you mean a phone reservation system?
Very similar to how Cove Cafe is...
You walk up and give them your
or
name
Cove
and
Bar.
party size, and they'll text you to come back when it's your turn. And when we went in, you had to wait in the line until it was your turn.
Yeah, so the first 2 days, you basically got in line, and they would then cap it off when they felt like the line was too long. We were maybe 40 people deep, and we waited a solid 45 minutes to get in on the very first time. Then maybe they would open it up sporadically, but that wasn't guaranteed because they just didn't know how many people would be in there and how long it would take to get through. But now they're doing the phone reservation system, so you get in line, you put in your phone number, and you'll get a message when it's time to come back. But that, of course, too, is filling up very quickly. And
what's so special about Oga's?
Well, of course, it is the only place that you can purchase alcohol. It has to be consumed inside. You're not allowed to bring it out at all. But it's really just the environment inside there. It is DJ Rex. So Captain Rex from original Star Tours has been repurposed into a DJ in there, and the music he's playing is very fun. It's very energetic, but then every now and then he malfunctions and starts spitting out lines from original Star Tours, and that's at one point he shuts down completely, and then you hear the do 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 do, and he boots right back up. Like they handled it all so perfectly. But the drinks are also really fun. They're inspired. It's between the specialty mugs, which you can see in the video vlog we put out on it. It's very intricate with what they did on that. But even then, just regular drinks, they tried to take them to the next level. Like, we had one that made our mouths go numb.
Was that intentional?
Yeah, because the guy, I said, the bartender, I'm like, oh, my lip went numb. And he's like, oh, no, you must have got a poison batch. So it was like, you're drinking stuff, like, it was the fuzzy tauntaun that you're like, it's made with a sort of a thing that could be poison, like a blowfish scenario or something.
Oh.
So it was cool.
But beyond that, everything else with all the shopping and food, you could basically get to it as you wanted. So I know we're going to hold off on that. We have to talk about Smuggler's Run, obviously.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
So I'll let someone else talk since I've been speaking.
Okay, so I talk about it because I know people ask me about my motion sickness a lot. It did make me a little queasy.
That's one of the concerns I have.
Yeah, and so I am definitely going to recommend you take some Dramamine or whatever helps you with that sort of thing before you go in there, before you go in there. I think maybe different positions will make me feel differently. Yeah. So the positions I got to play are left pilot, right pilot, and the gunner. And with the two pilots, you are in front and you do have to look at the screen the entire time to kind of make sure you're piloting the ship correctly. But with the other ones, like the gunner, you kind of want to see where your fingers are touching the buttons and look at the screen, so it's a little more back and forth. And then the engineer, you're even further back. And I didn't get to do that one, but I have heard that one is a lot more fun than people make it out to be. But what I'll say about this attraction is it kind of blows my mind that not only does like the 6 different places have something different for you to do each time, but then you can go on again. So you already need to ride 6 times based on that. And then based on that, you can like perfect your score. And then the gunner, you could either be on manual or auto. And so it's just kind of genius to me how they built this ride to have such an incredible re-rideability. And this won't even be the e-ticket attraction in the area.
And so
it's,
I get really terrible motion sickness too, to the point where like there's a lot of rides I just don't even get on. And this didn't bother me in the
snowflake.
In the slightest.
Oh, see, I felt sick for a while afterwards.
But, so you were the pilot twice.
Yeah.
Both of my experiences were done on left and right hand gunner, and like Rhino said, that's a lot of looking at your buttons on the wall and looking at the screen. And yet, like surprisingly, like I can't even do Star Tours. I love Star Tours.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I can't do it. I try to do it every once in a while. I'll get on it, and there's never a time where I get off that ride and I don't feel awful. Both experiences on this ride, I felt completely fine getting off of it. And like I said, I wasn't the pilot either time. I was the gunner, but just a little food for thought.
I just want to say real quick, well, I agree with both of your summaries of the ride. Also, the line and the lounge that you get to go into, and then just sitting in the cockpit, like just the sitting at the chessboard, or what is it called, the Dergic board,
the hollow chest.
And then just going in even before the ride starts. That part I think blew me away. I don't know. Just wanted to mention that.
All right. Well, we're gonna continue this discussion next week. Go into more detail on merchandise and dining options at Galaxy's Edge. But before we wrap up, 2 questions for each of you. Keep it brief. 1, did it live up to the hype? And number 2, scale of 1 to 10, what did you think of it? Steve?
Lived up to the hype. Like a 9.5. I mean, there's maybe some small things that I can be critical about, but
Fiasco.
Lived up to the hype, definitely. And if I had to put it on a scale, I'd say probably about a 9. Yeah.
A 9. Tom, what do you think?
Exceeded the hype. I would say 9.
You said exceeded the hype, and you give it a 9. Wow. Okay.
I give it I feel like it's like an 11 for me. I feel like it did live up to the hype, but it also gave me so much more than the hype ever even gave me.
So you feel it exceeded the hype as well?
Yeah, and I think there were things that I didn't even know to be hyped about. And what I love is that it can, like, hopefully, like with the other things they'll add in as they go, I can only see this growing and being better. You know,
Batu holds lots of secrets.
Exactly. Yeah. I haven't even. I don't even feel like I've really experienced the land all the way through, and we went in 3 times.
Wow, Craig.
Like I said, for me, it's a little bit different because my first time being in there was not under normal circumstances, so it was a rough time for me. I can't really say what it felt on that. For a number score, I'm sorry, I have to be vague too. The only thing, while it was great for us, I would say if you're a person who invested all the money into getting the park tickets or a hotel room and travel to get there, if you didn't budget for merchandise and the food and dining experiences, then I don't think you could walk away with a lot. This is a land designed for people who can invest in the land and put extra money towards it. And if you don't have that money, you're seeing
Isn't that true of every Disney theme park everywhere?
Well,
no, I can walk around Fantasyland and not have to buy every single piece of cool thing in there to do it. But I feel like to really get the most out of Galaxy's Edge, like you want to build your lightsaber, you want to build a droid.
So you can't answer simple questions. Did it live up to the hype? Scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, but it's because it is complicated. We went in there with deep pockets and ready to live it up. And if you are that way,
Well, I'm asking for your experience now. I'm not asking you to say like what the experience of this person or that person would be. I'm asking for your opinion.
I still can't answer because this was my first time in there.
Okay.
The next time it'll be different.
All right. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to have to do it for this episode. We will continue this discussion next week. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week with another episode of the Disneyland edition of the Diz Unplugged. Have a great week, folks.